Hello and welcome. Today we're taking a look at Guerlain Holiday, and we're also going to take a look at the new Valentino brow. It's a trio. It's actually has a pen, a pencil, and a spoolie, so they're calling it the brow trio. And we have the Creal eyeliners. So let's go ahead. We're going to start off with the Guerlain eyeshadow swatches. So I actually have 3 pieces of the Guerlain Holiday Collection. These were gifted. This is the packaging here on the palette. This is beveled, so you can see it's actually textured. It is not going to have a flat surface. And this is what it looks like. It feels almost like a matte plastic. That's kind of what it feels like. And then inside, this is the palette. This is 520 Stellar Glow. And just like always, it does come with a plastic tray with a couple utensils. So you have this to keep your shadows. And then we have a dual-ended foam tip applicator with a standard end and a pointed end. And then this one has a standard foam tip applicator with a little brush, an angled brush on the other side. So let's take a look at the swatches. I also have the Luminizer and the Nude lipstick, which is what I have on right now. But starting with the eyeshadow, you can see we do have more of the flat pans here. So this is the formula that Guerlain has been using recently in their quads. You can see here this brown. In the pan, it looks cooler than it is. I'm actually going to put another swatch of it here and just kind of buff that out, because when you buff it out, you see a lot more of that reddish hue to it. So I want to make sure you can see how red that actually is. And then we have a gold. So this is going to be a yellow gold. And you can see it's kind of like a satin finish, but this can actually go pretty sheer as well. It's not going to be like a glittery topper though. It is more of a satin finish. Then we have this, which in the pan next to the other items, it looks a little bit more blue, but it's actually going to be a true silver. There is, you know, a tiny bit of blue in there, which is common for silver, but it's actually not a super blue silver shade. And that's going to have the same finish as our gold. You can see it can go very sheer. And then last up, we have this deep matte peach. So we have a satin. These are kind of like satin metallics in a way, but they can be sheer. And then a matte. So this is Stellar Glow. Let's take a look at these on the eyes. First, just a quick overview of what is included in the Guerlain Holiday Collection. We do have the Ombragé eyeshadow quad featured here. And then there are also going to be 2 limited edition lip oils, the meteorites, which, you know, they look really pretty. They've got a nice little star shape this time. I passed on those because I'm not a fan of the new fragrance that Guerlain uses in their meteorites. We have the Luminizer, and then there is a Rouge G lipstick case with this collection, as well as 2 shades. There's a red and a nude. And this collection is called the Tale of Wonders. As for the eyeshadow quad, it retails for $90 US. We have 6 grams of product. There's a 6-month shelf life, and it's made in France. According to Guerlain, the Ombragé eyeshadow quad has been reinvented in a unique, festive, and luminous harmony. Ombragé's exceptional texture, made up of intense pigments delivering long-lasting color, offers unparalleled depth. A radiant, glowing palette to endlessly transform your eyes and create festive looks for both day and night, all set in an origami-inspired geometric case. As you can see in the eye swatches, just one swipe with a brush actually provides very pigmented application for both the brown and the peach shade. The silver and the gold, they definitely have a bit more of a translucent or transparent base here, so they can be a lot more sheer. You can get a light coverage with that. With a brush application, you can build it up a bit more with the foam tip applicator or a fingertip application, but there is still kind of that transparency to it, so it's never going to be truly opaque. If you're familiar with the Guerlain eyeshadow formula, this is the same formula that we have seen recently, ever since they kind of stopped doing that more putty-like when their quads first came out. They're really easy to work with. I would say that the matte in here, the peachy matte, is smooth, pigmented, and slightly less powdery than we saw in earlier iterations of this formula. The satin is smooth and pigmented. You can really see that reddish undertone when you kind of buff that into your skin. When you buff it in, you see a bit more of that satin finish as well. You get more of this luminosity without seeing any glitter particles in it. The silver and the gold, however, they are more of a very finely milled shimmer formula with a transparent base. So you can use a soft application with a brush to get more of that starlight effect that you would get with a topper using these. And you can see that in the eye demo for today with the use of the silver on top. If you use a more firm application method, you can really build that up a bit more. However, they are not going to be quite as pigmented as the brown or the peach shade in the palette. Those are definitely going to be stronger in pigmentation level and presence overall. Personally, I would have preferred to get a little bit more presence from the silver and the gold because I do feel like when you're layering them on top of the other shades, they are just not they're not dominant, they're not equal, they're a little bit underwhelming. You know, you really do see a lot less of the silver and the gold than you might expect. So I would have preferred a little bit more presence with that, have perhaps maybe a softer, more metallic formula for at least one of those two shades, just for a little bit more variation, because I do feel like the two of them don't make a huge difference necessarily on the lid if you're putting them on top of something else, which is probably how I would use them most of the time. So it's really a personal preference there. On the other hand, we see a lot of silver and gold in holiday collections every year, and they usually do have more presence. So it is kind of nice to see something a little bit more subtle. So it's really just going to be personal preference here. Let's go ahead and take a look at a few comparisons. So I wanted to compare Stellar Glow with some of the previous Guerlain palettes. So this one here is 910 Undressed Brown. So with this, we've got satins and mattes. You can see we have a nice bright satin orange. We have kind of a soft peachy satin. And then we have a couple of browns here. And you can see that the brown in Stellar Glow is kind of a mix of our deeper brown here and this lighter one that has more red. It's almost like it's 75% this with 25% of this deeper brown. So that is Undressed Brown. This one here is 258 Wild Nudes. This came out the same time as the Undressed Brown palette. And this was, I can't remember if it was the first time or one of the first times we saw this formula from Dior, from Guerlain, because prior to that we had more of like a more putty-like gel powder formula in their quads. You can see here that this shade is going to be a lighter, slightly rosier version of this deep peach. And the other shades don't quite match up. This is a lighter, still kind of a reddish brown, but it's definitely lighter and softer, not quite the same. And then when Guerlain first came out with their quads, this was that formula that they had. This is 940 Royal Jungle, which is actually one of my favorites. I like this formula better than the current formula because there's a little bit more grip here. And I just think, you know, it's a bit more unique. It's really great with these kind of deep shades here because, you know, you're not getting fallout. They don't go anywhere and you can get kind of a soft look or you can build them up. And you can see that these are going to be cooler in tone. This has some golden shimmer and this is going to be more orange. So Royal Jungle is not a match. And then our last one here is 131 Birdie Beige, which is definitely going to be a cooler tone palette overall. But let's go ahead and just swatch it just to kind of see the color story there. Kind of smeared that shimmer there a little bit. And then this one here is kind of the closest, but you can see it is going to be a little bit softer peach shade, and it doesn't have as much of that orangey red hue to it that we have in the new Stellar Glow. So I hope that was helpful. One more time, we have the Stellar Glow Holiday Palette here. This is going to be Undressed Brown, Wild Nudes, Royal Jungle, and Birdie Beige. And before we move on to more Guerlain, let's take a look at the Sarah Creal liners and the Valentino brow gel or brow pen, whatever. All right, so let's start off with the Sarah Creal eyeliners. And these were gifted to me. I was actually ordering them myself when a gifting request came out. And I've actually been using these for several weeks and just, with all the holiday collections that have come out, I haven't had time to film them. So let me just go ahead and show you how we have this. We have a little brush on one end. And then on the other end is going to be our pencil. And they do recommend using their own sharpener with it. I have not had to sharpen any of these yet, but you can see here is the pencil sharpener with it. They just say that, although this is a pencil that you sharpen, it's just gonna stay a bit smoother and get, the perfect shape using their particular sharpener. So let's go ahead and swatch these. And this one here is Bronzy, and this is the one that I have on right now with this eye look. So here is Bronzy, and you can see it's going to be a warm bronze tone. It has a bit more of a metallic finish. This one here is Copper, which is going to be deeper. We've got a bit of red in here, but really it's going to be kind of a nice rich brown. And let me just go ahead and put that with the Guerlain shade. You can see it's going to be more neutral than the brown in the Stellar Glow palette, but we do have a bit of a reddish hue to that. This one here is Everyday Taupe, which is probably the one that I've used the most. It is a nice medium brown. I do think though that it's neutral, leaning a little bit warm. And typically when I think of taupe, I think of something a little bit cooler, but it did make me think of the Natasha Denona. This is the eye crayon in taupe. Let me just go ahead and put that one right here. You can see though that this is going to be a cooler tone, deeper brown for a taupe. And yeah, they're pretty different shades in my opinion. And then the last one that I have is Rich Cocoa, which is a really nice deep black brown kind of shade here. You can see it's beautiful. So this is, I've been using this a lot. I would have to say probably my two favorites are actually the Copper and the Rich Cocoa, but I have been using all of these. So what I like about these, and you could see that in the eye demo there, they're very easy to apply. You can see, this has been on, not even a minute. This one, even less time. They set really well. I mean, you can see the pressure I'm applying here. And they set, they stay put. I did get some movement with that one, but not with the Bronzy shade. They're easy to use. You can still remove them with a traditional makeup remover very easily at night. You can smudge them out. You can use them as precise lines. I just think they're a really nice formula. I also really like the finish of these like satin metallics here in the eyeliners because you can see they're very finely milled and we don't have like loose glitter or anything. And even after doing a ton of eye swatches, they're not irritating to my eyes. So I think it's a really great formula. And, Sarah Creal is a brand that for me just continually hits it out of the park. I've loved almost everything I've tried from her brand. And yeah, I think it's a really nice line. Now, as for the Valentino Brow Trio, I have the shade Taupe. So we have an end here with the pen. This is pretty light. You can see you can get a fine line. But I find that this doesn't have very much presence. I actually prefer the pen from SUQQU. So just for reference here, this is the SUQQU liner this is shade number 2. So this is the SUQQU pen. You can see it's also light, but it's got a little bit more presence to it. It's not quite as light and it just doesn't look quite as blurred of the formula as well. So if you just take a look here, just even at these swatches, especially where you kind of have a bit more of it, you can see this looks like the formula itself looks a little bit more blurry. So I just think it's Then if you're looking at this end of the pencil, you can see we have the cap here, which is our spoolie, but here we have our pencil crayon end. And again, I don't love this either because it's kind of waxy. So you kind of have to press hard to get the color out. You can see how the color compares to the pen. They are close. This is a little bit warmer, slightly deeper, but I find this applicator is just a little bit too thick. I really prefer the, personally, I really like the Victoria Beckham. So this is the brow blade or the baby blade in taupe, which you can see has a much smaller applicator here. So the Valentino Brow Trio, I've tried to like it. I just don't really like it. So I feel like the formulas are mediocre and it's just not worth it. So I'd pass on the Brow Trio personally. So one more time, we'll just look at the swatches for the eyeliners. We've got bronzy, copper, everyday taupe, and rich cocoa. Then this here is the Valentino Brow Trio in taupe, and so is this one. This is our SUQQU brow pen in 02, and this is the Victoria Beckham baby blade in taupe. So I hope that was helpful. Let's go ahead and move on to the Luminizer, which was probably the items I was most excited for in the Guerlain holiday collection. Now, before we move into the actual Luminizer, when we get to the demos on the cheeks, today I'm wearing the Guerlain Terracotta Blush in 00. And I did have a request to compare this. So this is a very light, pale pink shade. It's actually, this is probably my favorite of the Guerlain blushes. But again, I'm not huge on that terracotta smell personally. But I had a request to compare it with the Burberry blush in 20, Pink Heather. So I wanted to go ahead and put those here so you can kind of see how they can compare. And I feel like they're both pretty light, so it's hard to really get a true comparison. Let me try this on my wrist as well. Here is the Burberry. We'll make that nice and big. And here is the Guerlain. Just trying to get as much pigment as possible. You can see that they are close, but the Burberry is slightly peachier. It's a little bit warmer than the Guerlain. The Guerlain's a little bit more neutral. Pigmentation-wise, they're fairly similar in terms of depth of color. So I hope that was helpful going at the Burberry and the Guerlain in 00. So here's the Guerlain, here's the Burberry, Guerlain. Let's take a look at the Luminizer, which comes in very similar packaging to the blush. It's the same as the bronzers, but you can see it is larger than the blush. It's going to be the same size as the bronzers. If you love the fragrance used with the Guerlain Terracotta line, this will not disappoint you. It does have the same fragrance, and this is called Rosy Gleam. Now, I did try to see if there was a top coat on here and kind of removed the top layer. There is not. It is going to be shimmery throughout, so just something to note. And this is called Rosy Gleam. And let's go ahead, we'll put this one right here. And I think it's a really pretty peachy pink glittery highlighter. This is also something that would be stunning on the eyes. Let's actually, you know what? Let's just put some on the eyes. I'm going to bring you in closer. So here it is, kind of going on the eyes. Look at that. I mean, that alone with an eyeliner would be stunning. A great holiday look as well. All right, so here's Rosy Gleam on the arm again, and you can see you can definitely kind of build that up. But if you're using a lighter application, this is what you get. And let's take a look at this on the cheeks. And in the demos here, I start off with the Refer 20 fan brush, so you can see a very light, soft application. Then we move into, this is actually a Chikuhodo eyeshadow brush, but I love this one for highlighter. And then the Chikuhodo Bobo CH1 brush, so you can really see it built up. This retails for $65 US. It has 7 grams of product. It has a 1-year shelf life, and it is made in Italy. According to Guerlain, this exclusive edition of Terracotta Luminizer Shimmering Powder is inspired by the rosy light in an unprecedented color gradation, ranging from a delicate pink to a harmony of peach tones. Its naturally derived shimmer reveals a sparkling, rosy golden glow, playing on multi-dimensional reflections. Its light, seamless texture leaves a delicate veil on skin, forming an ultra-fine shimmering film that captures the light to give a glowing, luminous finish all day long. The Luminizer is definitely a high glitter formula. I think the undertones of here, this peachy rose hue, is really beautiful, very flattering for many skin tones. The shimmer in here actually has a very similar nude and kind of silver finish to it. And I think it's a really beautiful color overall. I do question how well this fits into this year's holiday collection though, because this is going to lean cool. So this is more of a cool tone luminizer, whereas our eyeshadow palette, which, you know, I would say is arguably the star of the collection, that is significantly warmer. It's definitely warm tone. We're not even just skewing warm. It is a warm tone palette. So I feel like the tones of the two don't quite coincide. I love the color of the highlighter. Now it is a very glittery highlighter, and I typically prefer my highlighters to be a bit more subtle, but I really like this one. I really like it. You know, I think I'll use this a lot as eyeshadow even, just because it's such a pretty shade, but it's definitely going to be glittery. And I would say it's a little, the glitter in here is a little bit more finely milled than the Dior glitter. Let's go ahead and take a look at some comparisons. But first, you know, you can see kind of in photos a bit more of a gradient on here, but in person, you don't really see as much of that color shift. So this is the top of the palette versus the bottom. You can see this is a little bit more pink. This is a little bit more peach. But when you're looking at it straight on, you don't really see the color variation unless the light hits it just right. So I feel like most of the time people are just going to wear it kind of mixed together. So this is our Rosy Gleam, but let's take a look at some comparisons. Now, I don't have one of the Guerlain luminizers any longer, but I did want to kind of start off with some of the Dior comparisons because the finish reminded me at first of the Dior Forever luminizers. This is number 6 Opal Sequin, but I wanted to show you how much more sheer the Opal Sequin is. You can see though that the finish is comparable. This is the holiday highlighter this year, Dior Star from Dior. And although the color doesn't match, again, the finish is similar. The Dior Star is going to be just a little bit more subtle. There's a little bit more sheer. The shimmer is a touch more finely milled and just a little bit more sparse shimmer overall. They're both very sparkly. This is considered the glitter finish from Dior. And then I wanted to look at the Frosted Opal Glow from Dior and just see if we can get any sort of color that's kind of similar here. So these are the kind of lilac and pink. Those don't quite go up. Might as well do the white and the blue too, just to kind of have them here, but they're not going to match either, unfortunately. Yeah, there's just not really a match with this one. You can see these are going to be warmer. They're very, I love the luminosity you get with the actual color in the product here. So I also wanted to take a look at the Givenchy in number 14, and this is a loose powder highlighter. All right, so here's the Givenchy. Let's go ahead, we'll put this right here. You can see it's going to be more finely milled. We don't have those big glitter pieces. Color-wise, this is going to be a little bit more beige, a little more ivory, less of that peachy pink. This is kind of like a more toned down, finely milled version though. So color wise, it is kind of a subdued version in terms of color. And then this is the Cle de Peau highlighter in 110, Radiant Peafowl, which is this year's holiday highlighter. Again, this is going to be a bit more finely milled. It's more ivory. We don't have a color exactly like this. And then this is the Dolce & Gabbana. This is their eyeshadow in Chrome Star. So looking at these two shades, so this is kind of our pink topper in the middle. Let's go ahead. Here's a pink topper. Here is the peachy shimmer. And you can see kind of, you know, if we mix those together, actually, see how close that is. It's going to be a bit peachier, but it's kind of similar. It kind of gives you the same vibe. It is a little bit less glittery, the formula, and this is creamier. So, you know, I feel like to really see that color, you get more of the actual pigmentation, less of the glitter. But that's probably my closest. So I hope that was helpful. Again, this here is the Luminizer in Rosy Gleam. You can also see it vertically here and here. It's a really pretty color. Let's go ahead and move on to the Rouge G lipstick. So Guerlain, you do have to purchase the case separately from the refill. This is our refill in 306. Our numbers are going to be etched down here at the back. And you can see we do have kind of our star logo all over the bullet. And then this is our case. If you're not holding it closed, it does open to your dual mirror. And it is going to be beveled. It matches the packaging on the eyeshadow palette. And it does come with a velour pouch. So this is shade 306 in the satin formula. And you can see it is going to be a medium tone peach. So before we move on to this on the lips, I just wanted to kind of swatch the peach from the eyeshadow palette with this. So you can see how close those are. And you can see that the colors are very similar. We have a little bit more pink in the lipstick, but they're very, very close. The case is called the Tale of Wonders. It retails for $43 US, and the lipstick retails for $42 US. If you order these from the Guerlain website, you can get your case engraved for free. What happens is they engrave it on the mirror. So that is definitely an option. It takes maybe an extra day or two typically, although I think they put in a disclaimer that could take like up to 2 weeks. And I've never had it take more than a couple days when I've gotten things engraved in the past. The lipstick has 3.5 grams of product and it is made in France. According to Guerlain, Rouge G has been reinvented in a radiant golden adornment, revealing its secret double mirror. The weight of this jewel case has been reduced by 19% and its manufacturing process optimized, allowing a 30% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions compared to the previous generation of Rouge G cases. So we saw this when the cases were redone, and then unfortunately our older lipstick cases do not work with the new bullets. And the only reason I'm bringing this up again is because Guerlain continues to say, intended to be refilled, kept, and passed on. Rouge G underlines the customization of its iconic case through designs crafted in a chic, timeless style. Desirable items that are reinvented over the seasons to collect at will. The new Rouge G cases are only compatible with the new generation refills and vice versa. I just have a little bit of issue with them saying that these are designed to be kept and passed on, because it does imply that you can keep these for perhaps generations, but definitely pass them on to, for example, children and so forth, which had always been my plan with the previous cases, and now those are obsolete. So are these also then going to be obsolete by the time that actually happens? And I'm not bringing this up to get back into the whole saga of the change cases, but I do want to mention that because this has happened in the past, I would not purchase these cases with the express thought of having them be an heirloom that you can continually pass on and be able to find refills that will work with them. So if you love the case, get the case for now, but I wouldn't recommend purchasing it and saving it for a future generation, because, you know, based off of what has already happened, the history they've shown us, it's not going to work. So that's the only reason I wanted to bring that up, because I do find that to be a little bit disappointing. And I just don't really trust the way this is worded on the website. So as for the actual lipstick, I do like the Guerlain Rouge G lipsticks. I do really enjoy their satin formula. I find the older formula to be slightly better. It had a little bit more grip, and I just felt like it was also a little bit more emollient than the current formula here, but I do enjoy the new formula. This is a nice soft satin. It is going to be a deep peach though, so if you have warmer undertones, you like kind of those warmer nudes or warmer peaches for every day, this is a really beautiful shade for that. So let's go ahead and move on to a few comparisons. And I did want to compare just a few of the Guerlain Rouge G lipsticks that are in their permanent line. So this one here is number 131. And let's go ahead, we'll put this one vertically here. This is going to be a softer peach with a bit more pink in it. So this is 131. This one here is number 11. We'll put that one right below it. This is going to be a bit rosier here. And depth of color though is similar, but this is going to be a little bit cooler in tone. And then the last one I wanted to share is number 6, which is, you know, I'll put this here because it's not going to match, but it is one of my favorites. So if you do happen to have these, you can just kind of get an idea of the color difference. So you can see this is really going to be a more of a medium tone rose. So those are kind of the closest that I had there. So I hope that was helpful. One more time, we have the Nude lipstick in the holiday collection 306, Nude Songe. This is the peach eyeshadow in the holiday quad Stellar Glow. So you can see they definitely go very well together. So let's go ahead and just do a quick summary of everything that we looked at here today. All right, so we start off with the Guerlain eyeshadow quad. This is going to be a warm tone holiday palette. And because our silver and our gold are going to be fairly soft in terms of pigmentation level, our main 2 shades are going to be this reddish brown and the peach, which are great, you know, year-round shades. And then you can just add a little bit of fun with the silver and gold. So I think it is a nice warm tone palette. And, you know, the Dior holiday palette, the Plum Parade, the formula on that was kind of powdery and a little disappointing. I would say that the formula on this, because they do texturally feel similar, this is actually much better, more pigmented. It doesn't kind of blend away. So, you know, if you like kind of that thinner, powdery texture formula, this is a good example of that. And then we moved on. We also took a look at the Creal eyeliners. These are called the Eyes Up eyeliners. I really like these, particularly the Rich Cocoa is probably my favorite, followed by the Copper. I think they are some really nice neutral shades, and I like how we have kind of a matte and a shimmer finish in the available shades. We also took a look at the Valentino Brow Trio, which, you know, I just think is mediocre. I don't personally find it worth purchasing, so I would pass on this one. I just don't think it's it's not great. It's not bad, but it's not great. And I do find that the pencil is just a little bit thicker on there than I would like. It's a little bit waxier. Pigmentation on those is definitely gonna be lighter. So if you are very fair with very light hair, and you know, these products are typically too deep for you, this could be an option then. Then we took a look at the Guerlain Holiday Luminizer, which I think is a really beautiful color, but it is going to be a very glittery luminizer. So it definitely screams holiday, special occasion kind of thing to me. But if you're looking for more of a subtle glow, you're not going to get that with this. I do love the color for it. And I do feel like I will probably use this on my eyes quite a bit, but it's a really pretty peachy pink. I feel like it doesn't quite go with the warmth in the rest of the Guerlain holiday collection, but I do love the color of it. I wish for, you know, as a highlighter, it wasn't quite as glittery as it is. Like we still have this color, but it was a bit more of the finish of the Cle de Peau versus this higher glitter formula. So love the color though. And then we have the lipstick in Nude Songe, which is this swatch here. Packaging on this is very nice, matches the packaging on the holiday quad, and this is going to be a medium deep peach. So it's definitely going to be warm tone. It goes very well with the collection overall. So I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know if you've picked any of these items up. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, thank you to Guerlain and Sarah Creal for sending me items featured here today. And I will see you very soon. I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for watching.